Welcome back, everybody. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down my Dynasty Rookie running back rankings. These are going to be tiered rankings, and I'm going to give you reasons why I think some players should be in specific tiers. You may agree, disagree, but please watch to the end of this video, and I think you might be surprised with some of these selections. And so we begin with tier 1, Ashton Genty. I think he's by himself. I really think this is the consensus view as well, and for good reason. He, in my opinion, is the best running back prospect we've had since Bijan Robinson. I think he rivals Bijan Robinson as a prospect. Maybe not quite as good in the receiving game, but I think as a rusher, he's potentially better. Needless to say, the difference, in my opinion, is pretty negligible. Now, in terms of the landing spot in the draft capital, he was selected 6th overall to the Las Vegas Raiders. You know, it's a new offense there. They're going to have Pete Carroll. So I think they're going to look to run the ball early and often. In terms of his competition in the backfield, you have Sincere McCormick, Zamir White, players that shouldn't strike fear in anybody. Neither one of them have significant draft capital or team investment in any way, shape, or form. He steps in. He is going to be the lead back immediately. In terms of the offense, they upgraded at quarterback with Geno Smith, so we like that. It should help the passing offense. Obviously, you have Brock Bowers, new addition Jack Besh. You still have Jacoby Myers, so there are some passing game assets to be able to take some of the pressure off and, reduce the boxes that Genty's going to see. So I do think he's going to be effective with a good bit of volume, and I think that he is such a talent at the running back position that if you're selecting, if you're first overall, rather, in your rookie drafts, I think you would be doing yourself a huge disservice to be taking anybody but Ashton Genty. Moving on to tier 2, by the way, Genty I had an 89 grade on. That is just a tick under the 90 to be an elite prospect at the running back position. I think that, he's going to smash, obviously, like I said. But here in tier 2, we have 2 running backs, Amarian Hampton of the Chargers and Trevion Henderson of the Patriots. Now, I have Hampton getting a slight edge here despite him receiving an 80.5 grade as opposed to Henderson's 88.5. I think they're both in the great tier of prospects, so I don't think there's necessarily a difference in tier with these guys. But I give the edge to Amarian Hampton because he receives, first of all, the better draft capital, being selected 22nd overall in the first round. So he gets that 5th-year option, a little bit more of a team investment. He's in that Greg Roman offense under Jim Harbaugh. They're going to look to run as much as humanly possible. He has a good offensive environment. They upgraded, with Mekhi Becton at guard. They have the 2 tackles that are great as well. They drafted Trey Harris to be the vertical X in this offense to Ladd McConkey's slot/Z. I definitely think that there is a lot of upside with Hampton. I think that, though, he is going to start off a little bit slowly because they're going to have Najee Harris. So I think he's going to be splitting reps at the beginning of the season. But I really think that, by the end of the season, it's going to be Hampton's backfield. He is just so much more talented. I comped him to more of a Josh Jacobs type as opposed to Najee Harris, who's, a lot more of a slow plotter type, despite their build kind of being the same. But I think that Hampton is going to be absolutely dominant, especially this next season. Then we have Trevion Henderson, who goes to the Patriots. He was drafted 38th overall, so not quite as good of draft capital as Amarian Hampton here, right? So he also has to contend with Ramondre Stevenson, which I don't really think is that bad because I don't really want Henderson, given some of his durability issues, to be receiving massive amounts of work. I think he can be in that Jahmyr Gibbs, Alvin Kamara type of style where, if you give him 10 to 15 carries and then you give him another 5 or so targets, at least in the passing game per week, he can produce elite numbers for us with a very high upside. I think that Henderson is going to be a little bit better in the passing game once again, but I think Hampton has that build to where he can receive more volume. I think they're both going to be scoring plenty of touchdowns. I love both of these guys. And if you can't get Ashton Genty on your team, these guys are hardly a consolation prize. I think that every single one of these top 3 running backs has RB1 potential immediately in year 1. And I am taking these guys wherever I can in my rookie drafts. Now we go to tier 3. So I have RJ Harvey for the Broncos and Quinshan Judkins from the Browns in the same tier. Now, RJ Harvey received a massive boost in terms of his final grade because of the late 2nd round draft capital. Thank you. I'm glad the NFL agreed with Bobby and I's assertion that RJ Harvey is one of the better backs in this draft class. Now, one thing with RJ Harvey is he's 24. He's going to be 25, I believe, towards the latter half of the season, potentially right after the season. So he's a little bit older, but once again, he receives that 2nd round draft capital in a Sean Payton offense. In terms of his competition, it's pretty laughable, to be honest with you. Audric Estime is probably his main competition as kind of that bigger back. I think that RJ Harvey is similar to LaShawn McCoy in terms of his running style. I think he has passing game upside. Now, he is not very good in pass pro, so that is something to consider here. But I definitely think that he lands in a Sean Payton offense that's going to be scoring plenty of points. I think he gets tons of opportunity. And, with these running backs, we really don't expect too much generally from them outside of their rookie contracts, right? A lot of times these guys just don't last forever. Not everybody's Adrian Peterson. So I really think that he's going to hit the ground running. I think the competition, once again, in his backfield is laughable. And I think he's going to be a very high upside running back too with RB1 spike weeks, potentially even higher if everything breaks his way. Now, we also have Quinshan Judkins of the Cleveland Browns in this tier as well. He received 36th overall draft capital, which is a lot better than the end of round 2 draft capital that Harvey received. But they also drafted Dylan Sampson, who I think is going to be a little bit of a change of pace back. Now, I think that Judkins is going to receive a good bit of work. I think he also received some passing game opportunity as well. So I definitely think that while he isn't necessarily going to have the entire backfield to himself, that he's a very good prospect. I think they're going to look to run the ball as much as they can. The defense is very, very good there in Cleveland. So I definitely think that they're going to be able to stay relatively close enough in games where the game script isn't generally going to be that far out of hand to where they can't really run the ball with him. I think he's the Nick Chubb replacement. And so I think he has a ton of upside as well. He just barely missed out in being in the same tier as a prospect as Harvey. But, it's the bottom of the great tier of running backs for Harvey versus the tip top of the good tier of running back prospects in terms of Judkins. And with the landing spot being so good for both of them, I really think that as far as, mid to late round 1, I think these guys are absolute smashes for us in Dynasty, depending on your team need. And I think that both of these guys have very high-end upside, but I think they'll probably be in that mid to high-end RB2 status as far as running backs in terms of their rookie production, if I had to guess. Now, as far as tier 4 is concerned, I have Caleb Johnson of the Steelers. Now, he received third round draft capital. I was really hoping he was going to be selected in the second round. However, as far as the landing spot is concerned, it's about as good as it gets, man. They've already mentioned being Mike Tomlin, that they view him as a high volume kind of a guy. So I definitely think he's going to receive a ton of volume on the ground. Now, Jaylen Warren is around in the backfield. So as far as, the passing game upside, I don't think he's going to be, a true workhorse in that sense. I think it's going to be similar to what we had with Najee and Jaylen Warren this past season, except I think Caleb Johnson is just a much better player than Najee Harris. He ended up with a 77 overall grade, which is a good running back prospect. So I definitely think that he has RB2 upside. I think he will be an RB2 for sure. RB1, probably not. I don't think he gets enough receiving work. But, depending on, if Aaron Rodgers does come to town, I think that the offense could score enough touchdowns that if he is on the high end of touchdown variance, that he could potentially slip in as a low end RB1. Needless to say, I really like Caleb Johnson. As far as the offensive environment, they have DK Metcalf, George Pickens, so there are threats on the outside to help the running game. He shouldn't face off against as many stacked boxes as some other guys are going to at the NFL level, given the nature of their offenses. And so once again, I definitely think that, at the probably late back end of your first round, hopefully not even into the second round, you're able to get him. If he falls into the second round, I think somebody got an absolute steal. And I want to give a special shout out to my Patreon members. Thank you to Big Hunt, SP, Mage Shack, and Infamy MTG. If you would like to become a Patreon member, the link's going to be below in the comment section. There we're going to have weekly live streams where we go over, fantasy news, potential buy low candidates, sell high candidates, depending on the news. We're going to give you specific league-oriented roster construction with trade advice based on your specific league settings there. We're going to give you access to early videos. We're going to give you the ability to suggest videos as well. I made a private video for someone on Isaac Rendo, some of the pluses, minuses to his game, things to like, and specific price points to sell or buy for. You're also going to find that we are working on a model with predictive capability for running backs, quarterbacks, tight ends, and wide receivers based on a variety of specific metrics, minimums and maximums to be in an acceptable range for us in fantasy that will be predictive and lead us to being able to be more successful, we think, than the average person in determining which prospects based on these thresholds are likely to hit or unlikely to hit. And we're also going to be updating that each and every single year with the new prospects so that we can continuously have the best model possible. So once again, if you'd like to become a member, the link's going to be below in the comment section. Thanks. Moving on to tier 5, we have Cam Skattebo of the Giants. He was selected in the 4th round of the NFL draft. That is decent draft capital, albeit not elite draft capital. However, his running back mate Tyron Tracy is a converted receiver who was selected in the 5th round of this past season by the same regime that just drafted Cam Skattebo. I definitely think they intend to get him used. Once again, he received the better draft capital than the running back they selected this past season. He has a receiving profile with over 600 receiving yards in this final collegiate season of his, along with the workhorse build to potentially just overtake the backfield entirely. I definitely think that the team probably isn't going to be winning a ton of games this year. I think they're going to be reasonably competitive, though. And I think that, with his receiving work, that he's not going to be able to be taken out of games like some of these guys that just aren't going to be capable pass catchers. So I think he has a ton of upside. I think he's being slept on. I've seen sometimes him go at the back end of the 2nd round in rookie drafts. I think he's going to be a massive value there. I think he's going to get a ton of work. And I definitely think he has some touchdown upside because, with Russell Wilson / Jameis Winston, maybe even Jackson Dart at some point, I think all of these quarterbacks have significantly more upside than anything they had this past season, which at best was Daniel Jones. So I really think that he is capable of being a bell cow back and could be a very good value, especially if you're somehow able to get this guy at the back end of the 2nd round, or potentially even the 3rd round if your league mates are sleeping. Rounding out tier 6, we have Bashal Tutin, Jordan James, and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Listen, Bashal Tutin is the first running back selected under this regime, under Liam Cohen. They aren't the ones who selected Travis Etienne in the 1st round. That was 2 regimes ago. Then Tank Bigsby was also drafted under the last regime. They have nothing to do with Bashal Tutin. Now, another thing with Bashal Tutin is while, yes, he was technically drafted in the 4th round, if this had happened last year, he would have been a 3rd round draft pick because of the comp picks in the last season compared to this season. So the overall draft capital isn't as bad as it might seem. Now, the upside with him, this guy is absolutely electric. He can score from anywhere on the field. His speed and burst is some of the best in the NFL, not even just this draft class, at the NFL level. He does have some vision issues from time to time, and he does drop the ball, puts the ball on the ground from time to time as well. If he can get that fixed, he has so much upside. He potentially, if used in the same way, does have the upside of somebody like a Bucky Irving, like a Devon Achane is, right? So I think that this guy in your 2nd rounds, maybe, mid at best, but probably late 2nd round, is going to have a ton of upside and could be a potential league winner. I want everything to do with this Liam Cohen offense. Listen, guys. Then we have Jordan James, who did grade out at an 80. Tutin, by the way, was a 73. And so Jordan James was in the great tier of running back prospects for us. He just didn't get the draft capital and isn't, an elite athlete. I think he's an above average athlete, though, besides his top end speed, which I think is still fine. He lands with the 49ers, so he is going to be behind Christian McCaffrey, potentially vying for RB2 duties with Isaac Guerendo. Guerendo received 4th round draft capital this past season. Jordan James was selected in the 5th round, so the draft capital isn't necessarily in his favor, but I think he's just a great player. He comps to Aaron Jones, in my opinion. McCaffrey, I had been saying prior to last season that I just think McCaffrey is a huge risk. I was completely out at cost. I don't have any shares and didn't at the time. I'd already sold all of my shares of McCaffrey because, traditionally peak seasons at the running back position don't happen after age 28 on average. There are outliers such as Derrick Henry, but McCaffrey is not Derrick Henry, right? He's a very skilled back, but he's just not as big as Derrick Henry, right? And so we already saw him miss time multiple times this past season being McCaffrey. And then we saw that James, their secondary running back, also dealt with injury. So then it was up to Isaac Guerendo, who also missed time with injury. And so we've seen in this offense that none of these guys, even, George Kittle can't stay healthy. Brandon Ayuk couldn't stay healthy. Ricky Pearsall, it wasn't really his fault. He was struck by a fast-moving object in a robbery attempt. So I think that Jordan James, despite being selected in the 5th round, has a lot of upside and very well could see opportunities this season. If this guy is allowed to be the lead back at any point in time, I think he could take over the lead running back position in this depth chart. He is that good. And I think he's going to be a great value that you could get potentially maybe even late third round in your rookie drafts. I think he has a ton of upside and is a big time sleeper. He shouldn't even be a sleeper, in my opinion, though. But then somebody that I think is a potential sleeper is Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, selected by the Giants. He's a late round draft pick, but when you think about the running back room, right? Brian Robinson, he's fine. He's nothing special. Then you also have Austin Eckler, or the corpse of him, really. I think he is drastically slipping in terms of talent due to age and career usage. He's still a fine pass catching back, but I think that Krosky-Merritt has some of this elite burst on film. I think he has some real upside. And once we get kind of past the Jordan James Tutons of the world, I think it starts to get a little bit murky. But I think specifically due to landing spot and this potential, high-end offense by the Washington Commanders with Jaden Daniels at quarterback, this guy could be absolutely scary in the read option game. I think he has a ton of upside, and I think if he's able to see the field, he could produce big numbers for us as kind of your spot start flex option or just potential bye week replacement. And so to wrap things up here, in my S tier, once again, I have Ashton Genty. He just missed being an elite running back prospect. I think he's a great running back prospect. He lands in Las Vegas where, they have Geno Smith at quarterback. That's a significant upgrade from what they had this past season. They still have Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, Jack Besh in the second round. So there is some talent around him. I think that he's going to receive a ton of work, and I don't think he can be phased out of the game due to his receiving prowess. Remember that he had 500 yards, over 500 rather, as a true sophomore at Boise State. Then in the tier 2, we have Trevion Henderson and Amarian Hampton. With Henderson, he did receive 38th overall draft capital in a Josh McDaniels offense. I think they really like him. I think he's going to be a fantastic asset. I think he's going to be used more like, the early days Kamara and the Jahmyr Gibbs, where he receives a little bit less workload on the ground, but receives a good amount of passing game volume. And he's so efficient that he's going to be fantastic for us. Now, I don't think that he's going to just be, a workhorse ever, but I think that's good for him due to some of the durability concerns we have with him. Remember, we also have Amarian Hampton in this tier. Even though he's going to be competing with Najee Harris, I think towards the latter half of the season, if you can be patient with him, he is going to be fantastic. Remember, he received 22nd overall draft capital. That is first round draft capital. He comps to Josh Jacobs. In this Greg Roman, Jim Harbaugh offense, I think they're going to look to run early and often, control games, and I think he's going to be by far the best running back there. I think he and Henderson both have mid to low end RB1 overall upside. I think Genty has RB1 overall upside. Then in the third tier with RJ Harvey and Quinshan Judkins. With Harvey, he lands in Denver under Sean Payton. He is going to be a little bit older. He's 24 and a half. He's going to be 25 at the end of the season, but he has a ton of upside in the receiving game and on the ground. He has make you miss ability. I comped him to LaShawn McCoy. I think he's probably going to be an RB2, but he does have low end RB1 upside if he has touchdown variance in his favor. Same thing with Quinshan Judkins. Judkins, however, is more of your traditional bell cow back in terms of his build. And despite not receiving or not having a ton of passing game utilization because he was splitting time with Henderson, he is very good in the receiving game as well. He lands 36th overall to the Browns rather. He's going to be fantastic. I think he's an RB2 with RB1 upside as well. In the fourth tier, we have Caleb Johnson. He didn't receive the second round draft capital that I was looking for, but he still received third round draft capital. He slots in immediately as a better high-end Najee Harris. That was my comp for him, was a better Najee Harris. Tomlin's already talking about giving him a ton of work, that he can be a volume play on the ground. I think he's going to get a couple targets a game and a bunch of the rushing work. I think he's going to be great. If they get Aaron Rodgers, there should be a lot more touchdown upside as well. Then in the fifth tier, we have Cam Skattebo. Remember, in the same regime that selected Tyrone Tracy in the fifth round this past season, they just selected Cam Skattebo in the fourth round, so that's better draft capital. He has the receiving ability with over 600 receiving yards this past season. He's the bell cow build. I think he's going to take over as the main running back in that offense. They have some significant quarterback upgrades as well, so I definitely think he has a good bit of upside. In the late second to early third, potentially, of your rookie drafts, he might creep up in more competitive leagues. I think he has some upside. And then in the final tier, we have Bashal Tutin, Jordan James, and Krosky-Merritt. Bashal Tutin, remember, this regime did not select Travis Etienne. That was 2 regimes ago. Tank Bigsby was selected by the prior regime as well. Tutin is their pick. In last year's draft, he would have been a late third round pick. It's just because of the comp picks vary from year to year. He did happen to be a fourth round pick this season. I think he's going to be absolutely fantastic if given the opportunity. It's just a little bit murky. He has the upside to be a Devon Achane type of player if given the opportunity, maybe even a Bucky Irving type. He's incredibly fast and bursty. He does struggle at times with vision, but mostly with, fumbles. So if he cleans that up, he has a ton of upside, and he is a good receiving back as well. Jordan James lands with San Fran. Now, McCaffrey, once again, I was mentioning before last season even that, he's past the age apex of running back production where they typically don't have, a high-end year. Well, he dealt with injury. He really wasn't much of anything for us in fantasy this past season. And prior to that 2-year stretch, 2 and 3 years ago, he had been hurt 2 years in a row prior to that and missed almost the entirety of every year. I think that Jordan James is going to be vying with Grendo for the RB2 duties there. I think that he's one of the best running backs in this class. I had him as a great prospect. He's incredibly efficient. I comped him to Aaron Jones. So I definitely think that if given the opportunity, he has the chance to take over the backfield as soon as from this next season or at times this season. And then finally, we have Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt, who I think is a serious sleeper in this Washington Commanders offense. Plotter Brian Robinson is ahead of him. I don't think he's anything special. Then you also have an aging Austin Eckler, who's clearly a declining player. I think that Crosky-Merritt has elite burst, and I think he has serious upside if given opportunity. But what do you guys think? Do you agree, disagree? Let me know below. Make sure you check out my Patreon. Once again, feel free to like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And who is your favorite sleeper? Let me know below in the comment section. Thank you, and have a good day.